tonight. Spend, spend, spend. The battle over trillions and trillions more dollars in government spending as the U.S. nears a debt limit on paying bills the nation already owes. Plus, the Chief Justice attends Mass ahead of today's Supreme Court kickoff with a major abortion case on the docket. And new signs of peace.
This is an historic moment.
In the wake of the Abraham Accords, Bahrain is opening an embassy in Israel. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
President Biden playing peacemaker in chief, wanting a deal on infrastructure and the debt. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
Good evening. I'm Jenna Browder. The future of President Biden's agenda is at a standstill tonight, and questions remain about what's next.
Progressive and moderate Democrats have yet to bridge their divide over competing ideas about prioritizing spending on infrastructure. CBN's Tara Mergener starts us off with this report on whether they can move forward. Tara.
Well, John and Jenna, President Biden has been working to bring the party together, but to no avail. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who had to delay the vote twice, has now set a new deadline of October 31st.
Quite frankly, it's hypocritical, dangerous, and disgraceful.
A sharp rebuke from President Biden to Republicans, who are taking a hard line against raising the debt ceiling before the October 18th deadline. That's when the government would run out of money to pay its bills.
Not only are Republicans refusing to do their job, but threatening to use their power, to prevent us from doing our job, saving the economy from a catastrophic event.
Biden's comments come as his domestic agenda hangs in the balance. Moderate House Democrats continue to push for an immediate vote on the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. It's already passed the Senate and would revamp the nation's roads, bridges, and airports. Progressives still want up to $3.5 trillion more on a social safety net bill that includes sweeping new programs like paid family leave, universal pre-K, and free community college, and more money to fight climate change.
We need a vote. We need to be real.
Stressing until that vote happens, they won't support the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
We thought, we made clear 3.5 months ago that the two had to move together because we don't want to pit roads and bridges against childcare.
Two Senate Democrats, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, remain the key holdouts over the price tag and other elements. The White House arguing it would be mostly paid for by taxing the rich.
And it's very popular with the American people that the wealthy and big corporations finally pay their fair share.
Over the weekend, Senator Bernie Sanders admitting the current dollar amount will likely be lowered.
$3.5 trillion should be a minimum, but I accept that there's going to have to be give and take.
The White House says President Biden will travel to Michigan tomorrow to tout his Build Back Better agenda and his infrastructure plan. The trip comes as polls show his approval rating continues to fall after a slew of crises at home and abroad. John and Jenna.
All right, Tara, thank you. And here with us now for our Faith Nation political panel, Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections, and CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. Both of you, welcome. Great to have you with us this Monday. So President Biden, he seems to be on board with the progressives of the Democratic Party in agreeing that the fate of the two bills, the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better $3.5 trillion bill, are intertwined. David, that is a big win for progressives, especially when you now consider that with the delay.
Well, it's a big win for them now, but we'll see exactly ultimately what happens here. Look, this is not going to be a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. It's just that simple. And if progressives continue to insist it's going to be, then guess what? This just in. There won't be a reconciliation bill. It's just that simple. There's no way Manchin and Sinema are going to go for $3.5 trillion. So that's that. The question really is going to be whether or not progressives will go for that 1.5 or 2 trillion, excuse me, I'm getting my millions and trillions all mixed up at this point, whether or not they'll go for that. And that remains to be seen. I'd be curious to get Nathan's take on this. I mean, he's been around this town a long time. Don't take that the wrong way, Nathan. But I got to tell you, you would think that this is major egg on their face regarding Democrats if they can't get something done. You think they're going to meet somewhere in the middle here. I don't know.
Well, Nathan, we should just let you take it up right there.
Yeah, I agree with David that I think that 3.5 trillion is very unlikely. The votes aren't there, but I think what you're seeing are kind of the two competing parts of the Democratic Party. You have the progressives who might be looking ahead to 2022 and saying we might lose one or both of the majorities. This is the time to get done what we want to get done. And then you have other members of the Democratic caucus looking at 2022 and saying, if I vote for a $3.5 trillion spending bill, I'm going to lose re-election. And we see because the majorities are so narrow, or Democrats have such slim control of the House and the Senate, that they need both of those groups of Democrats in order to maintain control. So I agree that I think that it's going to be something less. And in the end, Democrats will come to some sort of agreement. If it all blows up, I think you'll see Democrats come back to try to get piecemeal a couple of different aspects so they don't just come away completely empty-handed.
Nathan, the focus has been on Congress. If we can zoom out a little bit on voters, the White House continues to say that the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan, that price tag for now, is popular among voters. But recent polling shows support slipping among a crucial demographic. Half of independent voters say that figure is too high. It seems like voters may be losing appetite for this level of government spending, Nathan.
Yeah, it depends on how you ask the question and how you ask voters. If you're just talking about these huge amounts of money, yeah, I think people get a little bit leery. If you ask them about specific pieces or programs or spending that might benefit them specifically, then it starts to get more popular. And that's where it's going to be up to Democrats, if they pass something, to go out and sell it. I think this is a big difference from 2010 with the Affordable Care Act, when Democrats passed it and then they sort of ignored what they passed. And here I think you'll see Democrats try to pass something and then go out and try to sell it to the American people, including with President Biden out on the trail.
Yeah. David, Democrats were united in message to say that this infrastructure spending would cost $0. They're not saying that anymore.
$0. Sorry, insert laugh track. This isn't $0. And by the way, let's just be clear. I know they say $0 because it'll all be paid for. Yeah, it'll be paid for with increase in taxes on, as they say, the wealthy and the corporations. But that's still not $0. 3.5 or 2 trillion, whatever it is, it's still not $0. But look, Joe Biden, let's be honest. I mean, Joe Biden even today came out and said the $0 figure, along with some of his Cedric Richmond, one of his top White House counsels, or as I say counsels, one of the top White House officials there. So they're not backing down on the so-called $0, but the American people are not going to buy that. I mean, look, it's the Democrats and spending. I mean, we know the scenario. We're not stupid. None of us are that stupid. I mean, some of us potentially are a little stupid, but we're not that bad.
I feel that you just tossed it back to me on stupid. Thanks. So speaking of spending, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says Republicans have no demands when it comes to the debt ceiling, writing in a letter to President Biden that if Democrats want to govern alone, they can handle the debt limit alone as well. David, Nathan, real quickly, and in the minute that we have left, who wins in the debt ceiling standoff?
Nathan, I'll let you take that one.
Well, hopefully there gets to be some sort of deal and it gets done, or else, according to economists, there are bad things that are going to happen. I think Republicans believe that it's the responsibility is on Democrats, and they're going to bear all of the blame if something catastrophic happens. I'm not sure. I think Democrats are at more risk for blame, but if interest rates are going up all over the place, I think people are just going to look at Washington in general and say, it's broken. There are a lot of people who hate politicians, and it doesn't really matter who, if it's Republicans or Democrats.
I would say that Democrats are going to be in a defensive position here. And let's also remember, for the record, Joe Biden wants Republicans to raise the debt ceiling. Joe Biden himself voted against raising the debt ceiling in 2003, 2004, 2006. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This just in from Washington, politics. Back to you.
All right, and we'll leave it there. David, Nathan, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Well, turning overseas, the United States is weighing in on an escalating crisis, telling China to cease military pressure against Taiwan. The warning comes on the heels of 52 Chinese fighter planes flying into Taiwan's airspace Monday, the largest incursion against the self-ruled island to date. Chinese warplanes flying into Taiwan's air defense identification zone since Sunday, prompting Taiwan's foreign minister to warn his country is preparing for war with China. For its part, the United States State Department issued a statement saying the United States is very concerned by the People's Republic of China's provocative military activity near Taiwan, adding the continued incursion into Taiwanese airspace is destabilizing risks, miscalculations, and undermines regional peace and stability.
And with that, let's bring in Gordon Chang, author, columnist, and speaker. Gordon, welcome. It's good to have you with us tonight. So how significant is this incursion into Taiwan's airspace?
The benign interpretation is that this is just China huffing and puffing. Remember, on October 1st, it marked 72nd anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic. I'm concerned because the Biden administration, although it did issue a statement on Sunday through the State Department, actually has not been taking the same vigor that I think is necessary. So, for instance, we are seeing some military movements on our part in the U.S. Navy in waters around Taiwan. But China is moving much faster. And we know that China is testing the Biden administration because after the fall of Afghanistan, they said they were going to go after Taiwan and that the U.S. wasn't going to do anything about it. And I think that's actually what leaders in Beijing think. So this is an exceedingly dangerous situation.
To use your word benign along those lines, in its defense, China describes the flights as nothing more than exercises that celebrate the 72nd anniversary of modern China. Gordon, your thoughts on that?
Well, the Taiwan Air Defense Identification Zone, for the most part, is international airspace. And the Chinese just sliced off the southwestern portion of it. So they had a right to be in international airspace. But it is considered to be a provocative act when you enter another country's ADIZ, as it's called, and don't notify them. So this was belligerent, and this comes as pattern. Since the beginning of this year, we've had 600 Chinese planes enter Taiwan's zone. So this establishes a pressure campaign against Taiwan. And that's why we got to be concerned. The Global Times, which is controlled by the Communist Party's People's Daily, actually said war risk is real. And so we got to take them at their word.
Now, Gordon, how likely do you think war would be?
I tend to think that it's not likely, but on the other hand, there are some very disturbing developments at the top of the Communist Party in Beijing. There's a lot of infighting, which means that China can take us by surprise because they're not playing according to the same rules as we are. So we shouldn't be surprised if we end up in history's next great conflict. The Biden administration is just not deterring China. We know that from China's words. That's what makes this a time where we have to be extremely concerned about the inadequate response from Washington.
So, Gordon, if the Taiwan-China conflict devolves any further, what role does the United States play with regard to its responsibility towards Taiwan?
Well, under the Taiwan Relations Act, we do not commit to defend Taiwan. All we do is we commit to sell them weapons so that Taiwan can defend itself. I would hope that the United States would actually come to the defense of Taiwan. And I think that if we were to declare that beforehand, there would not be a conflict because China would not take us on. But the administration is not willing to do that. We have a policy called strategic ambiguity, which means we don't tell anyone what we're going to do. That policy worked in a more peaceful time. It's not working now, which means we need to go to a policy of strategic clarity, telling China, we will defend Taiwan.
Gordon, real quickly here, given the fact that the United States didn't do more to deter China when it came to Hong Kong, what do you think the Taiwanese are feeling?
The Taiwanese are feeling that a little bit alone. They understand that the United States is their protector. But right now, we don't know what the Biden team will do. It is just very much up in the air.
Yeah.
All right. Gordon Chang, thank you so much for your insights. We always appreciate them.
Thank you, Jenna and John.
Well, to the fight against COVID-19, tonight all but 2 U.S. airlines have announced vaccine mandates for employees. American Airlines, Alaska Airlines, and JetBlue Airways now joining Hawaiian, Frontier, and United Airlines in requiring vaccinations for staff. As for the approaching holiday season, today White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki responded to a question over whether it's too soon to tell if Americans will be able to safely gather for Christmas.
Does the president agree with Dr. Fauci that it's too soon to tell if people are going to be able to gather for Christmas?
Well, the president relies on CDC guidelines, and they have not changed their guidelines about who can gather together, those who are vaccinated.
All right, we will see. And coming up, as the Supreme Court kicks off a new term, why some believe a Mississippi law restricting abortion could doom the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Welcome back. Tonight, the Supreme Court's new term is officially underway, and the high caseload is already piling up with major cases that could tip the scales in America. Chief Justice John Roberts was the only member of the High Court to attend Sunday's Red Mass marking the new term. On the docket, a controversial case over a Mississippi abortion law that could overturn Roe v. Wade. The case will examine whether an abortion ban 15 weeks into a pregnancy is consistent with the Supreme Court decision in Roe. Dobbs v. Jackson's Women's Health is set for December.
Well, earlier today, I spoke with Dr. Richard Land, the former president of Southern Evangelical Seminary, who explained why this is such an important case.
Well, I think, first of all, the nature of the court. You have the Trump triumvirate of the 3 Trump justices, which gives us a potential 6-3 majority. And even if Chief Justice Roberts opts out, we still have 5 votes. So I think that's the first thing. Second thing is the Mississippi law is a good law. Good laws make for good court cases, and bad laws make for bad court cases. And this is a good law. It's a very defensible law. 15 weeks, no abortion on demand after 15 weeks. There is an exception for some permanent damage to the mother or life of the mother. There's an exception for fetal fatality if the baby does not have the ability to survive outside the womb. Then you can have an abortion, and it's really a good law. It was written by women legislators, argued by a female attorney general. It's an excellent law, and I think it has an excellent chance of sustaining the same Supreme Court challenge. More chance, I think, than the Texas law does. The Texas law, the fact that it is citizens who go to civil court to make the complaint or the charge, I think is going to be cumbersome for the court to get around.
Now, Dr. Land also said the Mississippi Act broadly represents where Americans are on abortion, but cautioned changing the law is just the beginning. He said laws ultimately don't change attitudes, pointing out how the 1964 Civil Rights Act has not ended racism.
Back in 1964, when the Civil Rights Bill passed, there was a gathering at the White House that night. There was a long struggle to pass that wonderful legislation. And Billy Graham was there, and Hubert Humphrey, who was then a senator and had been very much involved in getting the Civil Rights Bill passed, came over to the White House, and he walked up to Billy Graham and he said, "Billy, we've passed the law, but unless people like you change hearts and minds, it really won't have that much impact. The upholding of the Mississippi law is just the beginning. Changing the law is just the beginning. Then we have to change hearts and minds." I mean, we passed a law in 1964 on civil rights. We're still having to change hearts and minds when it comes to racism. It's about hearts and minds.
When we come back, how the Abraham Accords have led to a major milestone in the push for peace in the Middle East.
Welcome back. The Abraham Accords have reached another milestone in the Middle East.
Bahrain will open its embassy in Israel by the end of this year. Chris Mitchell brings us the details.
Foreign Minister Yair Lapid made the first official visit to Bahrain by an Israeli minister since last year's historic signing at the White House.
This is an historic moment.
Lapid spoke in the capital city of Manama, to inaugurate the new Israeli embassy and sign agreements with his Bahraini counterpart, Abdulatif Al-Zayani.
The official opening of embassies, which will symbolize diplomatic cooperation between us, more cooperation in the fields of tourism and technology, culture, energy, and environmental protection.
Lapid said the two countries share opportunities as well as threats.
Together with our friends in the Gulf, we are leading a brave coalition of moderates. A coalition that is looking forward and creating a prosperous future of stability and tolerance.
Following his meeting with Zayani, Lapid tweeted that Bahrain would open its embassy in Israel by the end of the year. Earlier, he met with King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa to thank him for the leadership and inspiration that led to this day. He also met with Crown Prince and Prime Minister Sheikh Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa. Prominent Bahraini journalist and author Adia Ahmed Al-Sayed says even though both countries face Iran as a common threat, that's not what brings them together.
What brought us together is that we are a community. This is a Middle East. Embracing each other, coming together, having relations also enables you to fight a common enemy. We don't need wars in the region. We need to fight ideologies.
After Lapid's landing in Manama, a Gulf Air flight departed for Tel Aviv, initiating direct flights between the countries. Greeted with a water salute, the pilot was As-Sayed's husband.
I think the feelings I have is not because he's my family and my partner, my husband, but it's the feeling of any Bahraini who wanted to be on that flight today, because this is how warm relations start.
And that was Chris Mitchell reporting. Coming up, the harvest is back. We take you to Southern California to experience the gospel extravaganza that kicked off last weekend.
Finally tonight, back by popular demand, California's SoCal Harvest.
Christian pop duo For King and Country opened the evangelistic event with a concert at Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California over the weekend. Joining For King and Country, Kirk Franklin and Tori Kelly. Joining virtually, Pastor Greg Laurie preached a message of hope to thousands in attendance. Laurie said they were there for one reason, Jesus Christ.
Huge turnout.
Thanks for watching.
Have a good night.